Hi, it's Dr. Tanya with Tuesday's Tips. Thank you for tuning in to my new YouTube channel. Please subscribe and share with your friends. Today we're going to talk about summer. Summer in the era of COVID-19. So summer camps, if they're open, and should you send your kids? And what can you do with your kids if you don't have any place to take them or send them this summer? What is a happy summer going to look like for so many kids across the country? So the first thing I want to talk about is summer camp, as many are opening. There are some preschool summer camps opening, some day camps opening, some sleepaway camps opening, not necessarily in my area, but across the country. So I do have patients who are flying across the country to go to sleepaway camp as they had planned. So for sleepaway camps, in some ways it could be easy to have a more normal, typical sleepaway summer camp experience, especially if it's outdoors and in the middle of nowhere. And the reason is that you can take a group of kids and you can test them before they get there. And you can say, hey, we're not going to allow other visitors or staff. Everyone has to stay there at the sleepaway camp. Everybody has to be tested a few days before they get to camp. And we are going to lock it down and not let anyone else in. You can actually have a safe bubble to run a more typical summer camp in. Now, we know that testing isn't always feasible for everyone. So in other cases, summer camps are going to be reorganizing, and some are going to do smaller groups because they can't test everybody and have the kids come in, lock down, and then mix as they normally would. So they're going to form little bubbles. So maybe your child will get to summer camp and be with one cabin of kids for the entire session, and that cabin won't mix with other cabins of kids. So that means that you won't see the normal giant dining halls. You won't have the big camp circles. Everything will be kind of in smaller pods of children. And that is to be able to decrease the number of individuals that each person is coming into contact with. And then also if someone gets sick, it makes it easier to isolate, test, and contact trace. And if you need to send a group of kids home, it would just be that small group of kids as opposed to the larger groups at camp or even the entire camp. Now, some camps are also reconfiguring into family camps where they're going to allow, instead of, let's say, groups of older children and teens that would come sleep away, they are going to say, hey, bring your entire family, and your entire family gets their own cabin for the 1 week or 2 week session. And then we're gonna clean it out, disinfect, and then we're gonna have another group of families come in. And each family is going to physical distance from the other families during camp while still doing a lot of really fun camp activities that are so important and meaningful, which means, hiking and canoeing and kayaking and horseback riding and swimming and, singing songs and having campfires. You'll just have each family, spaced out around the campfire. And family camp is something that can be fun. I know I've gone in past years with my own kids, and I remember growing up going to family camp one summer with my parents, and it's something that, I'll always remember. So for day camps are organizing themselves similarly to how we're going to see schools organizing themselves this fall when you go back to school. So for day camps, for instance, when I take my 5-year-old to his day camp, which is just a few miles away from where we live this summer in July, instead of having a large group of kids, he's going to be checked into a group of no more than 10 students, maybe 15. And that will be his camp group for the entire 2-week or 4-week session, depending on what we sign up for. And when we get to camp, they're going to check his temperature. They're going to ask me, has he had any illness symptoms today or in the last few days? Has he been in contact with anyone with illness symptoms in the last week? Has anyone in your family been sick in the last week? And when I say no, they'll check his temperature. They'll sanitize his hands. They'll make sure he's wearing a mask, and he'll go off to be with his group of 10 to 15 kids outside doing activities, which are still fun, but a little different from normal camp activities, as they won't be mixing with other groups. They won't be touching a lot of the same equipment, but they can still, do art projects together. They can still kick the ball. They can still run and play. They can still sit in a distance circle and sing songs and do camp cheers. And it'll be sort of a modified camp experience, but something that he can still do to interact with other 5-year-olds this summer, and a place that I can send him because, let's face it, I have to go to work. I have to see all my patients. So if you were not planning on sending your child to camp anyway this summer, if their camp got canceled, I know that there is going to be some sadness and even some depression going on in some families and with some kids and teens across the country right now. I mean, this is devastating for so many. I have patients who look forward to their 1 month away at Sleepaway Camp, or the weeks that they spend at their specific day camp, whether it's, art or dance or whatever activity it is they like to do. And it's been canceled, and they've been looking forward to this all year, to seeing those friends and getting into that environment, which is so different and relaxing and exciting for them. So this is going to be really challenging for families. But what I'm asking all of you parents to do is to try to acknowledge what your child is going through right now. And I know, honey, that this is so sad, and this is not what any of us expected to be doing this summer, and I understand you're disappointed. But we're going to work together as a family and come up with other things that we can do to try to make the best of this summer. I mean, summer is a time for relaxation, for in some ways doing nothing. When I was growing up, we would spend many summers where we didn't do anything except run around the neighborhood and play in the backyard all day long, right? And we would use our imagination, and we would dig for worms, and we would make mud balls, and we would climb trees, and we would, do all sorts of creative things that, guess what, our kids may get to do this summer. You're also going to spend more time with your children as a family, and maybe you're going to pitch a tent in your backyard. Maybe you're going to go for walks and hikes every day. Maybe you're going to build some forts and art projects. Maybe you're going to do some social distance activities with other families in your neighborhood. And now that some communities are opening up around the country, we are trying to talk about ways to safely see friends and other families while still maintaining that physical distance. So that could be going for a walk with another family across the street from you, and then having dinner at a park, but 10 feet apart on your own picnic blankets. It could be going for a distanced hike, or going to the beach, but staying far apart from the other family. We know that any activity that you engage in outdoors is much lower risk than being indoors. And so the good thing about summer is that summertime, you're really meant to be outdoors most of the time. Now, granted, it can be 100 degrees where I live. I get it. So we have to remember all of the regular summer safety. So that means wearing wide brim hats. That means frequent hydration. And when you're wearing a mask, it's important that you remove it, every few hours, sanitize your hands, and you drink lots and lots of fluids and eat so you don't get dehydrated. It means reapplying chemical-free sunscreen in gobs and goop all over you and your kids every 2 hours, and also after swimming or sweating. Let's not forget that being in the water, getting wet, is actually perfectly safe. So you could distance run through sprinklers with kids in the neighborhood. Going swimming is fine. It's just being near somebody where they could cough or breathe on you, or touching the commonly touched surfaces that we really want to avoid. But there's nothing wrong with being in the water. Again, that is outside and a great way to cool down. And when you are riding bikes and on wheels, don't forget helmets. Closed-toe shoes is something that I'm always reminding parents to do, because I see way too many toe and foot injuries when kids are biking and scootering during the summer. And helmets are really important because clearly head trauma is something that can be life-threatening, and we want to prevent that. So water safety, whether or not you have a pool in your backyard, or you're going to fill up a kiddie pool, or you're going to have sprinklers going, it's really important to never leave kids near any body of water without having direct supervision from an adult. And so if you have a kiddie pool in your backyard, if you have a swimming pool, it must always be surrounded by a fence completely at least 4 feet high or higher. If it's a kiddie pool, you have to dump it out, never leave it full, as even, a few centimeters of water a younger kid could topple into and drown. Make sure you always close the gates, that you don't leave toys or things that could, intrigue your younger kids to get back into the pool area when you're not watching them. Stay an arm's distance away from young kids whenever they're in the water. And then older kids and teenagers, make sure there's one adult that is always watching them when they're in the water. And that means put your phone down, put your magazine down, and take turns as an adult being the pool lifeguard if you don't have a real lifeguard watching the kids swimming. So I know we covered a lot of information here, but I think what is important to remember is that summer is still coming. Summer is still happening, and we all have the ability to have a fun and relaxing summer. It might look different than previous summers. We might have to give up some of the vacations and activities and camps that we had planned, but that's okay. We can, sit down and talk, have a family meeting, and figure out what our family really wants to do this summer and how we can tailor our expectations and what we're allowed to do to still be able to have a sort of different but fun and relaxing and carefree summertime. As that's what summer is really truly about. A break for kids, a break for parents, time to be together, time to explore, time to be outside and get dirty. And time to sort of refresh ourselves so that we are ready to start the new school year in August or September. And this new school year is going to be here soon before we know it. And whether it's in person, which I'm hoping and planning for, virtual, or a combination, your kids will be restarting school in a few months. So you want to make the most of the summertime that you have and allow everyone to have a little bit of enjoyment and safe fun this summer. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow me and share with your friends. And any other topics you'd like me to talk about, please leave them here. My goal is to provide you with information to keep your family healthy and safe. Until next week.